Welcome to the PROUST Questionnaire.
35 questions giving us insight into what makes creative people tick.
Okay, I'm very excited. Today we're seeing a young artist who you met on the internet.
That's right. Sarah Meyohas, a very exciting young conceptual artist working kind of in the interstices between sound, technology, vision, film. She's phenomenally interesting. And yeah, I was for a brief time on Instagram, which I don't do anymore, but she contacted me on Instagram because she had read a book of mine, Queen of Fashion, about Marie Antoinette's clothing choices. And she's somebody who, with her incredibly refined and very contemporary visual sensibility, is interested in fashion as well and the possibilities of fashion. So she wrote to me just as kind of like a little, hey, I'd love to meet you someday. I loved your book. And I wound up coming away from our long coffee here in the Village in New York, just an enormous fan of this young woman.
And she has a degree in finance, which is unusual for an artist, from the University of Pennsylvania, Wharton School of Business. And she's done a project called Bitcoin, where she wants to challenge the whole art system where people sell their work and then it rises in prices and art dealers and galleries and auction houses make a lot of money, but the artist doesn't see that money. So you can buy an investment in a work and then that investment will rise with the price of that work as it travels through the system.
Yeah.
And it's a feminist intervention.
I was going to say, the fact that it's called Bitcoin sort of tips you off to the beginning of her feminist outlook. She did another project where she sat on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange and manipulated a stock and used that kind of the movements of the stock and the volatility of the stock to kind of produce this
as a work
artwork.
of art.
Yeah, as a work of art. So she is very interested in the sort of intersection between capitalism, money, branding, and art.
And we got to see a show, as sort of an installation by her at the New Museum in downtown Manhattan here on the Bowery, really close to here actually, where she installed basically a baby grand piano, and then you put on these virtual reality goggles, and in a particular rhythm with a phrase by Liszt that she recomposed, you see these electronic birds perching on the piano, but they're not really there. And it was really moving to see people walking around the piano with their goggles and being just stunned by... Transported, exactly. In the same space. We're sharing the same space, so you're walking around and you can see, but you're suddenly seeing things that she's created.
Yeah. No, and it was really moving, and that was something I hadn't anticipated about going to that show, is the fact that there's kind of one set of goggles, so people take turns, and you and I were standing by the piano, hearing the music from Liszt and other little phrases from other composers she likes, although she mentions in our interview Liszt is a particularly important figure in her pantheon of artistic influences and loves. And so just getting to stand near the piano, hear the music, and sort of see some of the setup, but not see what the people with the goggles were seeing, and just watch their faces.
Yeah, it's a beautiful kind of use of technology. The piece is called Dawn Chorus, to create presence and at the same time not totally share it. So it's kind of a secret or a kind of something you want to enter into, and it's kind of a great way of using technology not to shut people out, but to say, I'm curious what is happening here.
I'm curious what is happening, and I can expand the parameters of what's possible in art. And to me, that's such an exciting aspect of her work and the extraordinary career she's already had thus far. I think she's probably not even 30 years old, which to me sounds insanely young.
And she's a New Yorker, born and bred, but also lived in France for part of her life.
And based in London largely.
Right.
Yeah. And I think is working on directing her first feature film. So I don't know how much she's talked about that publicly yet, but that's another thing that I'm really looking forward to seeing of hers, and should be coming out sometime in the next few years, and also has a very strong and powerful feminist component. So she's an extraordinary person. It's really great that we got to speak with her.
I'm really glad that you got to meet her on Instagram.
Thank God for social media.
That's right.
Okay.
All right. Welcome, Sarah. We're so happy that you're here today. Thanks for doing this with us.
Yes. Hi, nice to see you.
Yeah, it's nice to be here.
Okay, so we'll start with the PROUST questionnaire. The first question on this questionnaire is, what is your idea of perfect happiness?
My idea of perfect happiness is a ripe fig.
Do tell.
Which is because it's impossible to get a ripe fig in New York. Yeah. And the best figs I've had are either in Turkey or in the south of France. And generally, they're associated with vacation, climbing up a tree, childhood memories, and so I really associate a ripe fig with coming directly from like the branch and straight into my mouth, and it's just it's totally delicious. So a ripe fig.
Beautiful.
Oh, that's so great, and that's very Proustian too, because Proust defines happiness as something you can never really have. So the idea of this perfect memory of a fig that you can't find in New York is great, but we'll try to find some for you.
What is your greatest fear?
My fear is...
You go from there. And then, in fact...
You can go up from there.
And, well, we can't, except that we still stay in the trough of the negative for a minute or two, but I promise it gets better. What is the trait, Sarah, you most deplore in yourself?
I think that sometimes I'm a bit scattered, and that comes from curiosity and being able to enjoy lots of different types of subjects and disciplines. And sometimes I pride myself in being able to bring lots of disciplines together, but then in the worst moments, I think I'm like a master of none, a jack of all trades, master of none. So sometimes scattered is...
It feels like that's a symptom of today, though, too. Our attention is so disseminated in so many different directions all the time, pulled. What is the trait you most deplore in others?
Selfishness, and generally not thinking of future generations, which I think is our that's
our current state of the world.
Exactly.
Yeah. Sadly. Which living person do you most admire?
This is a hard one, but I think it would be Musha Prada.
Oh, okay. What a great choice. Tell us more about that.
She studied political philosophy or something like that. She has a full PhD in this. Mm-hmm. So she, on the one hand, and I think she was a mime, so she has this past that she can somehow keep while being a luxury fashion designer, and the two are not inconsistent in her, which is totally amazing. Mm-hmm. And she has a deep appreciation for the arts, but without overstepping the bounds, or she doesn't claim that she herself is an artist. She very much says that she's not. Mm-hmm. So just the way that she's totally multifaceted, and then also, a business leader and a style leader is amazing.
Yeah.
Not many political scientists pull that off.
I was trying to picture, Uli and I went to grad school together, and I was trying to picture anybody we knew who got a PhD in political science, and just how none of them would have turned into Musha Prada or had been a mime. So yeah, we have to
we may discover. We may interview somebody who'll tell us they were a mime. What is your greatest extravagance?
Being an artist. Yeah. What else?
It's extravagant.
Why
is that extravagant in your view?
Because art is the extra energy of society. It is pure extravagance. No one needs it. Mm-hmm. And then from a personal standpoint, it's the riskiest career you could possibly take. And some people will say, oh, it's not fair, right? So many artists from across the ages come from like privileged backgrounds, and that's because it's an extravagance. Mm-hmm. Like you can only afford to do it really if you can afford to take that type of risk. Mm-hmm. So both from a financial standpoint and also from like a social standpoint, art is extravagance.
Yeah. But we're grateful for it.
Yes.
What is your current state of mind?
I think my current state of mind is independence. Where I'm trying to think of myself both in my work and in my life as just a unit, which doesn't mean that I can't be with people in like full and rich ways. In fact, I'm always collaborating with different people, and I'm very happily engaged, and I have a family, but independence as a means of also taking responsibility for your own fate. Mm-hmm. and the fate of your work too.
Yeah, that it's down to you.
Yeah.
What do you consider the most overrated virtue? And we think that's what society thinks or other people think.
Overrated virtue. I think an overrated virtue is being smart.
Wow, we are surrounded professionally, the two of us, by people who think that's one of the great virtues. That's really interesting, right? They actually put that above other things.
Oh, sure, yeah. And why do you think so? We haven't gotten this answer before. It's great.
I think and part of it comes from, I think, my own. All of this comes from your own experience, where I'm very smart, and I find it not the thing that makes me move forward in the world. I think being sincere or having a direction or like not passion. Also, I don't love passion because passion can be so close to folly and to being irrational. And but being smart doesn't mean being compassionate. Being smart doesn't mean actually being good and wise.
Yeah.
Right. That's a very philosophical answer.
I know. I love that.
It's like an Aristotelian answer.
Yeah. And it's funny. The one person we've interviewed my husband on this podcast before, who's an economist and very smart by kind of general societal standards, and he actually often says to me when I'll complain about someone, oh well, that person isn't very smart. He always says, why do you think that being smart is that important or that valuable? And coming from him, that always feels a little like a slap in the face. But he means it, and I think he must maybe mean it in at least part of the way that you do. That's no guarantee that the person is wise, that they're kind, even that they're doing anything good with their lives.
Yeah.
You can be very smart and be sort of indolent and not accomplish anything or contribute anything, or you can be smart and do terrible things. So
yeah, that's a great answer.
On what occasion do you lie?
I really have a bad poker face, so I really don't lie, but only when I don't want to see people. I'm traveling.
We were lucky. We would never do any such thing.
No, definitely not. We're honest as well as smart. All right. So we know we'll get a truthful answer from you here, or we'll be able to read your poker face. What do you most dislike about your appearance?
I'm very comfortable with my appearance. The only thing that I could point to is a tiny red dot that's right above my upper lip that I think is a popped blood vessel. And the reason I dislike it is partly because it's so symmetrically placed. Like someone just put a little red dot right in the middle. And so it bothers me. I always think I could scratch it off. That's it though.
Yeah, I like that you're bothered by the symmetry of it.
I know the artist is bothered by the symmetry, but please, don't try. Listeners, please don't try scratching anything off at home.
Which living person do you most despise?
It's got to be Scott Pruitt or one of the other cronies. Yeah. Especially people. There are many in this current administration, but generally the type of people who are so self-interested, and this goes back to the selfishness thing, and also the people who take science, the science of environmental change, and then mess it up by linking it to religion or politics as if science was political. And I find that cruel.
What is the quality you most like in a man?
Kindness.
I wonder if this is going to be a different answer. What's the quality you most like in a woman?
The opposite, like strength.
Oh.
Is that the opposite of kindness?
Not the opposite, but I like a man who is softer and a woman who is harder.
Okay. So against the societal stereotype.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yes. Which words or phrases do you most overuse, do you think?
These days I love saying that something's outrageous. So outrageous.
So outrageous.
So, and is that a catch-all, like positive and negative?
Yeah.
Right.
Outrageous.
That's great.
I'm going to start that right now.
I know.
It's an outrageous answer. Good.
We're outraged. That's more negative, maybe. What or who is the greatest love of your life?
My fiance, Stephen Miller Krause. He's the sweetest and the best, and also very smart, but among good qualities.
I'm guessing also kind, however?
Yes, very kind.
Yeah, good.
Wonderful. Outrageous. When and where were you happiest?
That's a tough one. It's such a hard question, that one. Because thinking about happiness, well, first of all, retrospectively, you ascribe happiness to certain moments that you may not have actually been happiest in as a bias. And then the moments that you actually might have been the happiest, you might forget that those were the happiest moments. So it's actually such a hard is it a moment of achievement, right? I definitely loved seeing my film completed and watching it and having a sense of accomplishment and like rapture while watching it. But then maybe the point that I was actually happiest was eating a good fig or a good strawberry, just a good meal. So I find that question really, really hard. Water skiing is a great one. Water skiing is great. That's a good moment because you're really in the moment. You can't not be in the moment. And it's pure adrenaline, dopamine. So water skiing.
And you're outside.
You're outside.
On the water.
Yeah.
And the fresh air.
And the rush.
Right.
And the rush. And also, the kind of the single pointedness of the focus. I don't have any happy water skiing memories because I always fall. I get really excited and topple, and that's never that fun. But like, as you say, you have to be so focused and concentrated, and that, I guess, silences a lot of the chatter too that can make us unhappy.
Yeah.
Are you a water skier, Uli?
Water skiing, or actually all my happy experiences, I think, involve the ocean. Water, swimming. I'm very happy when I'm swimming. If I go somewhere where it's warm, I can swim for hours. I can be in the water for long. That makes me happy. It's very, very Freudian.
That
oceanic feeling.
The great oceanic feeling.
That made me think of a happy memory. I remember swimming in Italy, and the sun was hitting. It was close to sunset, so the way the light was hitting the water was beautiful. And I was with my best friend, and I was singing opera. But I don't sing opera, so it was just that one time.
Singing opera underwater?
No, just paddling and singing. That's a happy memory.
That's a good one. We need to try that, Uli. Which talent would you most like to have? And we assume that to mean a talent that you don't currently have.
Being a good sleeper.
Oh, yeah. We would both love that talent.
Yeah. Insomniacs.
Yeah. That's a good talent.
The amount of time wasted
trying to sleep,
lying in bed,
and thinking about sleeping,
or just thinking about nothing. I try not to think about anything,
right.
But it can be very frustrating.
I interviewed this guy about Henry David Thoreau, about Walton, how during the time when he wrote Walton in the 1860s, we invented this idea that you have to sleep for 8 hours because it corresponds to factory time and mechanized time. And they said, actually, no one needs to sleep that way. People should sleep any way they want and should get up once in the middle of the night and all of that. So there's this pressure also that you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
Like you're failing already.
That's what keeps me up at night.
You're like, you should be asleep by now.
And you're seeing the hours tick by, like 3 a.m., 4 a.m., and the rest of the world is on factory time, basically. So you wake up and you're already behind.
Yeah.
Kind of. Right. Or you wake up. Talent, sleeping as a talent is That's a great concept.
Yeah. If you could change one thing about yourself, what would it be?
As opposed to sleeping better. Changing one thing about myself. I'm very content with myself.
Yeah.
I don't think that there's anything that is
Okay.
out of reach.
What do you consider your greatest achievement?
I think my experimental film is my greatest achievement. I think out of the artworks I created, it's the one that like has the most in it, is the most complex, was the biggest joy to actually create, and I think really represents my varied interests and abilities also in the best way. And that's what I like about film as a medium, is how many skills and how it takes a whole world to make a film.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe it's a medium then that's well suited to what you were describing earlier as the scatteredness or the curiosity that sort of drives you and animates you, right?
Yes.
Because you can always be doing some different piece or dimension.
Yeah, and the way that it can touch both the heart and emotion, but also the intellect, but also your eyes. So being able to, reach the audience through all of those different ways, I think is a really great puzzle and a challenge, and is more like what reality is to me.
When it's not in a museum, can people see it elsewhere? Do you have it?
You can just email me and I'll send a Vimeo link.
Okay. Well, yeah, because people who don't have an opportunity to go see it in a show,
Yeah.
that'd be great.
We'd love to
We can include that.
Put that up on our website and make sure that people can see that. How long ago did you do the film? That film?
It feels a while ago. It was crazy how quickly it came together, but the first shooting happened in the summer of 2016.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah. And then it was finished and shown in the fall of 2017. I think that's right, yeah.
I like what you said. It takes a world to make a film. Then you said it's also like reality. It actually becomes then the world again.
Yeah.
The fullness, but the fact that we create the world as this full thing with all the world involved, rather than you just representing this thing already given to us.
And when you're creating a film and you're on set and you see this construction, it's real in front of you. This thing that you kind of just imagined and wrote instructions suddenly appears in front of you. It's like a crazy, surreal experience.
Oh, wow.
And then you get to record it like you want.
For other people to share also.
Yeah.
Experience.
Yeah, I always, when I try to explain to people who haven't read Proust, why I'm so obsessed with him, why I love his book so much, and I always try to explain that, he basically created a world all over again. But the difference is, as you just indicated, that he didn't then record it and, sort of create it in 3 dimensions. You have to be able to follow him on the page and imagine. And I think there is something, as you were saying before, sensorially different, obviously, about watching and hearing a film instead of picturing in your mind's eye how a particular character looks and imagining how, in your mind's ear, how they sound. You're right.
It's experiential.
Yeah.
You have to be really then in it. It's not just you looking at it from the outside anymore.
Yeah.
It must be a nice experience to get it done.
To get a film?
To film done, to get it finished.
Yeah. Well, and now, I really want to, I'm working on a film, and it's, I feel like I've been hitting my head against the wall for a very long time now, but I'm anxious to be on set because it's such a high.
Really?
It's like a drug.
Oh, good.
Because you're seeing your vision come to life.
Yeah.
That's
Well, it's exciting. Yeah.
We're in the wrong business.
I think we're in the right business.
If you were to die and come back as a person or a thing, what or who would that be?
I thought about this one. I would like to come back as the piano on which Franz Liszt played.
Oh.
Because
that would be an experience.
I love his music.
Yeah.
And he was a virtuoso pianist.
Great superstar. in his
Yeah.
Great superstar and so handsome.
Yes.
Lady killer.
Lady
Ravishing.
killer.
Breaking hearts in every
So
city.
imagine being his
And
actual
performing.
piano and him.
And composing his own pieces. So
That
also
too.
Yeah.
creating, actually that also, there are many virtuosos
Yeah.
who didn't write their own music.
Yeah.
So having those, so many talents.
Being his piano. It sounds almost way too sexual, but like,
Totally erotic. I want to be
outrageous.
friendless piano. Yeah.
I want him to play me like a keyboard. Well, also, and you probably know this because of your involvement with pianos.
Right.
You know, he was one of the early sort of celebrity endorsement people. So, like, piano companies made pianos for him, right? That were then, everybody could say, oh, that's the brand that Franz
Yeah.
Liszt. It wasn't Yamaha then, was it? Who was it?
it was definitely not Yamaha,
Yeah.
but I don't know who it could be. Was Bosendorfer around?
That's what I'm thinking. It
Yeah.
might have been a European company. It wasn't
Yeah.
Yamaha,
Yeah.
Bosendorfer maybe. But I don't know. We can find out.
Yeah.
Maybe at the Villa d'Este too.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, just add it to the setting as well as the
But you
piano.
have a little Liszt piece in your current piece,
Yes,
the new
there's
museum, correct?
yes,
There's
yes.
a little piece
That
of Liszt
was
in there.
mhm.
Yeah. Nice. Okay. So to be the piano.
We definitely haven't gotten that answer before, and we'll not get it again.
Where would you most like to live?
I think Japan, but only if I was part of the world.
Any part of Japan or just anywhere?
Just anywhere. It seems
Sounds great.
such a great, wacky place to be.
Yeah.
But
What is your most treasured possession?
this sounds cliche, especially given that I'm in photography, but my old photographs of family photographs, and a lot of them, my grandmother's house was set on fire accidentally a long time ago, and we were able to rescue all these old family photographs. So they all even like smell like soot, so that I think it's the photographs that survived the fire. Yeah.
What do you regard as the lowest depth of misery?
Depression, and just the kind of like the answer to the second question, just the gray purposelessness, I think, is the greatest depth of misery, more than pain, I think, because pain you can maybe endure if you have a reason to, but when you have no reason.
What would be, if you weren't doing what you're doing now, your favorite occupation?
If I weren't doing what I was doing now, my favorite occupation that I could actually do?
Yeah, job, profession, or something you spend your time
Or
with.
pastime, I guess. Right.
I'd probably, if I weren't doing what I'd be doing now, I'd probably be in finance.
Really?
Yeah.
Because you got a degree in...
I got a degree in that. My whole family does that.
Yeah.
I find it intellectually stimulating, but perhaps not emotionally rewarding. And so if I weren't being an artist, I'm not sure what else I would possibly have been doing.
You tried it for a while.
I did. I think
Yeah.
I told you that. Right? I was
Yeah.
I'm dyslexic with numbers, so I was a particularly bad investment banker. And in addition to the fact that I was just a bad investment banker, the flipping the numbers around made it very...
I kind of doubt that. Not to say anything else about all the other investment bankers who stayed in the profession. I'm sure Caroline was a fine investment banker.
That's not good. But it's kind of like the thing about having no talent for sleep. I felt every day from the beginning of the day till the end of the day, and as you know, in finance, days are very long. I worked in mergers and acquisitions, so 3 a.m. was sort of a standard time to finally be quasi done for the day. And just every day I felt like I was behind the 8 ball and failing because I wasn't good at that. So I think that's... Yeah. But I like the idea of you actually in finance. And then the Mucha Prada answer is also, again, an interesting one, the spanning multiple worlds that not everyone feels comfortable in all at once.
What is your most marked characteristic?
I think I like to wear gold and burgundy. And I think it's pretty marked at this point where I can have a fully burgundy, from shoes to everything, be all burgundy.
Head to toe.
Head to toe burgundy.
Well, today you're wearing a very remarkable gold coat.
Yes, I get so many compliments. I get called a queen on the street
with
the gold coat.
Yeah, it's really nice.
So
I'm so jealous that I was not seeing that in my size at Barney's. It's really, for the listeners here, it's shearling with kind of a crinkle gold. I used to have some Comme des Garçons gold leather pants that had that kind of crinkly, crackly finish.
See, I was impressed because it invokes completing a marathon, because it's the heat-retaining blanket you get afterwards. I thought, wow, you earned this coat.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. And you walked in, I thought, you earned this.
She is a queen.
Exactly.
What do you most value in your friends?
Humor. Humor. It's good to laugh with friends.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think humor also implies a kind of tolerance, forgiveness, acceptance, something like that. Because people laugh or have humor, they don't do that when they're judging.
Mm-hmm.
Rarely. I mean, you could laugh out of spite or something, but I think you don't. That's not humor. So humor is a capacity, I think, to accept certain things.
Yeah.
With, magnanimity. Sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who are your favorite writers?
Caroline Weber.
Oh, no! People think I paid you to say that. I'll give you your money later.
And that book will be available on the website.
25 cents for me. Thank you. Well, and that's how we met.
It's true. It's true.
Is that right?
Yeah, I was just such a fangirl.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And I am a fangirl.
But I share this because I read Caroline's book and I'd read Proust, but somehow that every sentence is so resonant and you somehow know that all of it is researched and then it becomes this kind of suspenseful tale. I thought it was a really incredible achievement because you read cultural histories and you think I want to learn something about the time, but this one I just couldn't stop. So I agree.
Yeah.
All right.
A page turner.
Yeah, exactly.
Page turners. That is, well, thank you both. Other favorite writers.
I do like, I always end up coming back to Baudelaire.
Yeah.
His poetry, I always come back to it.
Nothing better.
Yeah.
Yeah, Proust, I think, said in one of his letters that Baudelaire, and Proust loved a lot of poetry and knew everything by heart, knew all of Racine, all of Corneille, all of Victor Hugo, all of everybody, and he wrote somewhere toward the end of his life that basically no matter how much you love all of these other writers, Baudelaire is always the best poet. So.
I guess French is my second language, but I don't really have any French in that sense. I didn't grow up in a French school, so I don't know. But there are lines in Baudelaire that are in my mind, and I think someone who writes in a very classical style but addresses the modern condition. There's something like La nature vivons pliés. It's like this, and opens up. Every sentence opens up something, but it doesn't open up the plenitude of a tradition, of God, of some organized system. But it opens up on you, on an existential question.
Yeah.
But I think there's something Baudelaire has this. He gives a kind of energy to the French language that Racine probably wouldn't have for a non-French native person, which more classical, right?
Yeah, I mean Racine for me, it's so beautiful, but it's true that I was once working a lot on Racine, and I had this recurring dream when I could fall asleep that I was inside a gigantic crystal, and every facet was somehow like a line of Racine, and I couldn't quite see them in my dream, but I knew they were there. And when you read him, you do feel like you're enclosed in a world, in a very perfect world, but it's completely alien to us
to
today.
Our existence. Yeah,
and you're right that what part of what's really modern about Baudelaire, I think, is that opening out. Is Baudelaire kind of an important reference point for you in some of your work?
No, but actually what is an important reference point, there's this one stanza by Rilke, which I know that, and it's, I honestly won't be able to recall it, but it's like, that a feeling arises when flower petals touch flower petals, and and then something about like eyelids and then through them light must pass. Right, there's that one stanza, and that stanza was so important in my Cloud of Petals project.
For the Cloud of Petals, actually, I looked at that work and I thought Rilke has this sense that there's a sound that petals make when they touch other petals. And for him, this is, of course, an image for erotic touch, kind of the imperceptibility of that connection. But there's so much energy invested in a petal for Rilke and a rose petal. And the word in German is for petal and eyelid is the same. So there's a kind of, he can do something with that. So you're opening up vision or sense perception through flowers.
Yes, which is exactly what Cloud of Petals is about.
So phenomenal. Oh my gosh. Who is your hero, heroine of fiction, film, television? We added film and television because they're such an important part now of the kind of culture people consume, but just protagonist characters that you've loved.
That's a hard one for me. I don't really love, like, one of the reasons I actually love your work is that it's not fiction.
Right. Yeah. And nobody's a hero in anything I've written.
Yeah. I don't really have any heroines or heroes. I mean, I love Medusa, as you know, but I'm not sure she's a heroine.
Right. But a character.
But she's a character, yes. And I think Medusa right now is my obsession, because I think that the myth is so relevant to today, to the way we exist in a world of images and the gaze, and where a person's image, like, they can become a monster, so easily today, and negotiating female power within that is also very applicable today.
Oh, yeah.
And so Medusa, which is really the myth that I think is so related to artistic creation, right? Because she is like kind of the she's a creator, and she's also the icon that is represented everywhere. So she's so related to art, and then today she's also so related to women and social media and politics. So, and also the Me Too movement, right? She's a rape victim.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
She's the enraged victim who's turned into a monster.
But who's taking back some kind of power, right?
But yes.
The men who victimize.
And it's kind of like if you've been hurt like that, you do, even if you don't become a monster physically, like, how do you trust again, right? You become a different type of monster. You can become emotionally really callous. That's like one way of looking. It's very complex, and I'm not very explaining it in any, way very well. But the feeling that this myth today is in the air.
Yeah.
But even saying that, to already say she's a victim of rape, and the tradition depicts her as this monstrous being because she actually demands justice.
Yeah.
Or justice shouldn't happen, and so then, what model do we have for that? So she's not an angel, an archangel, but she becomes a monster.
Yeah.
So it's quite interesting that the category available for women who demand justice, that's an interesting one.
Yeah, and really also, she's also depicted in so many different ways. Like, sometimes she's depicted as a seductress, right? And there's such a discomfort in that, right? That culturally we've managed to turn this monster who was violated in her goddess's temple, right? Because she was Athena's priestess, into a seductress. Right. Like, what does that say about how desire works? Right.
Yeah, and again, that kind of the danger around femininity, or the threat that kind of seduction is then something that's castrating, that's fatal. Yeah, I'm so happy she's become such a touchstone for you, because I think you're right, Uli, that it's a figure that we really should be thinking about today. And
Is there a historical figure that you most identify with?
That's a funny one, because as a woman, I'm very conscious of the fact that in a historical time, I would have probably identified with like a lowly shopkeeper or a wife of somebody. So if I had to pick in a grand way, someone like Cleopatra, right? This is so.
Well, actually, Proust picked the first time around.
That's right.
He did. That was his character.
Did he?
Yes.
Yeah, so the
did.
first or the second one, he did this this podcast, I was going to say. He did an interview when he was 15, and then he picked Cleopatra as the historical figure he most
That's
admired.
right. Yeah. And I think he had just, if I recall correctly, he maybe had just seen Sarah Bernhardt in Cleopatra in this phenomenal, bejeweled, you've probably seen those images. My sense is that probably he also liked that aspect of things, because who doesn't? But, but also because history has been sexist and misogynistic for most of time, I think it's fine for us women to get to be grand when we're looking back at the past, because there's so little else that's on offer to us, and that's not our doing. It's not your fault that nobody but Cleopatra is known as a woman from that period. Yeah. So it's a good one. But you're right, it's interesting that Proust would choose her.
Anybody else has historical figures, or that's...
It's hard to have affinity with people from such a different culture and setting, right? Affinity is based on something that you feel is mutual. So the reason I would pick Cleopatra is because she was powerful, and she's an ancient queen. It's almost so far away that you can relate to it, right? And she's also viewed as this sexy figure, even though you know that actually she was not like that at all. And so, she's kind of mystical, and you want to be associated with that. But a real affinity, I have trouble.
Who are your heroes or heroines in real life?
Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Woohoo!
Woohoo.
Yeah.
It's hard to... She's just... Her... Yeah. There's not much to say. She's absolutely unbelievable. Yeah. And even to this day, you look at her,
right,
and it's absolutely outrageous, right? How this diminished, frail, old body can keep the responsibilities of being a Supreme Court justice.
Right.
I mean, I can't do that.
I know. I get tired just thinking about what she has to do.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. And the responsibility that's in her hands, too, to keep doing it so that she doesn't get...
And right now.
Replaced, yeah.
And right now, where actually even the court's reputation and standing is in question for some people.
Yeah.
That actually the court's reputation itself has been compromised in a lot of people's eyes. So the integrity that is hers is now upholding the integrity of the entire institution.
Yeah.
It's hard. Yeah.
What are your favorite names?
My favorite name right now is Iris. And I think that maybe in German it would be something else, but I like the way that it links sight and flowers.
Oh, nice.
What is it in German?
No, Iris, it's
well, didn't you say in the Rilke poem that with the petal,
lid.
the lid or something?
But it had iris, I think we use the same word for the iris of your eye also.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah. And I like flower, iris, that's a nice flower, yeah. What is it that you most dislike?
I really don't like black pepper. It's a terrible scourge on cooking everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah, and it can be hard to avoid.
It's hard to avoid, and that's at a micro level. At a macro level, I think it's the thing I most dislike is the complexity of the environmental issues that are facing our world, right? Mm-hmm. How it's so opaque and it's so difficult to, it's...
I interviewed this philosopher, Dale Jamieson, and the question was really, do we have a moral obligation to fight climate change? And he's a philosopher, and he said, basically, our morality doesn't work. He said, we don't have a moral philosophy that can address what we're addressing, so you can't really come up with good answers based on the entire moral philosophy we have available, which is really interesting. And he said, talking to people who deny climate change also, he said, there's no way to win these arguments anymore because we don't have a shared set of concepts.
Yeah.
So it's a failure not just, let's say, politically, environmentally, institutionally, financially, economically. It's morally, there's something quite not working.
Yeah. Yeah, it's eluding all of our ways of dealing with it other than just ignoring it.
Right.
Yeah.
So that and black pepper.
Okay, two big problems. What is your greatest regret?
My greatest regret. I don't know what my greatest regret is, but it doesn't mean that I'm not regretful sometimes. And so sometimes I'll catch myself just apologizing. I'll just be like, I'm sorry. Alone.
But you're not Canadian.
That does, yeah, that
Canadians
is the Canadians, yeah.
Is it?
They constantly apologize. They're sorry. I'm so
Oh,
sorry.
sorry
That's
I'm
so
bothering you
funny.
with this email about you.
Sorry.
Sorry we
Yeah,
had to make you come to our podcast, but
Oh, I don't apologize to people. I just apologize into the air. I'm like, I am so sorry. And I'm not sure what I did wrong, but I know that there was something I must have done wrong and I am sorry for it.
your part in climate change.
Yeah.
Just by existing, we're all also part of that.
This is another pretty
Downer.
direct question. How would you like to die?
Oh, this one I've thought about. And I've definitely fantasized, perhaps because I grew up in New York and I always grew up on a very high floor. So looking down, I definitely thought of dying just falling, out a window. And I would like it to be splayed out in a really gory way, but if possible, really beautiful at the same time, very glamorously.
Do you know this famous Ouija photograph? There's a very famous photograph from 1942, I believe, in New York City, and it's a woman who landed on top of a car. It's a really horrific graphic photograph, and since he was part of the police blotter, so he knew when something would happen, so he took this photograph, and it is like a de Kooning Warhol, but 30 years before, and it's really a shocking image, and she lands on top of this car. Yeah, it's really sorry to bring that up.
Yeah.
So land on the car, but then get painted by de Kooning.
Yes, something
they didn't
very
paint it.
spectacular.
It pre-visions, like it presages something like this kind of the female form and this kind of the kind of distorted way, but really beautiful. It's
so beautiful. Honestly, there is such a link between. So there's such beautiful crime photography.
You like Baudelaire.
I do love.
You like that too.
Yeah. You see the
death and love.
Affinity.
Yes, the affinity. There's such beautiful. There are some images, and I remember feeling bad about finding them so beautiful, of dead bodies just kind of just still in the grass on the side of a road, and it's. You see fashion photography that it's very close to it, where the body is, immobile, and there's something really seductive about death. And so, anyways, when I fantasize about death, I would like to be like a fashion photograph. But in reality, I, probably, it'd be nice. I don't know. I don't care.
Yeah, you won't be around anymore.
Yeah.
Not my problem now. What is your motto, if you have one?
It's embarrassing, but I think it's YOLO. You only live once. Yeah. That's my motto.
It's a good motto.
Yeah, it's widespread for a reason, and it's true also.
Yeah.
As far as we know.
As far as we know.
As
far as we know.
As far as we know.
Maybe some people.
Unless you come back as Liszt's piano.
Yes.
You live twice or something. You only live twice. Guilty. So who knows? Some people believe that.
Yeah.
We have another question that we add, because we just find these conversations so interesting. I keep it in my mind already, going back over your answers.
Mm-hmm, me too.
It just gives you a sense of how someone lives, actually, and how someone lives and connects to their work. It's really nice. So the question is there anyone you would like to hear, to listen to, who answers the questions on this podcast?
Oh, that's a good question. Someone called in the...
anyone in the world is easier if they're alive, but someone
it might give us an idea.
who you would find interesting. It's just because we just do it basically because we're interested in hearing you. Mm-hmm. We like your work. Right. So someone you would find, I'd love to hear what they would answer.
Well, in a more traditional answer, there's a philosopher that I am friends with who is wonderful, named Samuel Longcar. He's a philosopher of religion, but also he's works with the Marginalia Review of Books. He writes a lot, and so I would totally be curious to his answers. But then I'd also be curious about, there's a friend of mine also named Felix Salmon, who's the financial correspondent for Axios. It's like a news, and he is phenomenal. And he's very funny and smart in a good way. I would be curious about his answers. Those are my...
Oh, that's great. Thank you. That's people we don't know. So
no, it's fun. As opposed to, I mean, it's great for someone to say, you know, if you were still alive, oh, Nelson Mandela, oh, Queen Elizabeth, would love to know what she would say. But it's
Meghan Markle.
We're get to Meghan Markle.
Well, we'll get to
Yeah, I don't want to get to Meghan Markle. I don't, maybe.
I like the Canadians.
Yeah, the Canadians. Yeah, the pro and con Meghan Markle movement in Canada. Maybe we could get some representatives. But yeah, so it's fun for us to actually hear about people that wouldn't necessarily always come across our radar too.
Yeah. Oh, Matt Levine is another one. Matt Levine is a big Bloomberg financial blogger. He has a huge audience, but he studied classics.
Great.
And he studied classics, and I think he was a Latin teacher, but then he also worked at a bank, and he's also a lawyer. And so he's just got this, I think he lives a very boring life, you know, with a little daughter in Brooklyn, but he is also wacky. I'd like to know what he...
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah, we would never necessarily find him otherwise.
Yeah.
So, well, fun. Well, Sarah, thank you. We knew we were going to love this conversation with you, and we did.
Yes,
so
thank you
for
so
doing
much.
this.
You're very
Really
welcome.
appreciate
This
it.
was great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Great.